Hello EC fan addicts. Today we're going to go back to 1972 and look at some items that are related to the EC Fan-Addict convention of Memorial Day weekend 1972. This was the single biggest and, to my mind, the best EC gathering of all time. Could never possibly be repeated. In fact, it was never repeated. I was 2 years old at the time, so I've had to experience it vicariously through stuff related to that con. And the convention was put on by Bruce Hershenson and Ron Barlow. And Ron was one of the biggest figures in second generation EC fandom. He was responsible for a lot of things that kind of brought about the EC resurgence, the great EC revival of the early 70s. He was, with Bob Stewart, an editor of what I call the Big Book, the EC Horror Library, and he also wanted to reprint the EC Comics line. He actually did that to an extent, but first he wanted to get together all of the EC creators for the EC Fan-Addict Con. So here we've got the Monster Times, and this is the May 31st, 1972 issue. So this would have come out around the time of the EC Fan-Addict Con, and the reason I've got this out is that it has a large ad for the convention right there. I want you for the EC Con. And then this was one of the earliest ads for the convention, and it ran in things like Rocket's Blast and Comic Collector, any kind of fandom-related press, advertising for Memorial Day weekend, the EC Fan-Addict Convention. So that is that. And then what we have here are the membership kits for the Fan-Addict Convention. Now, what a lot of people don't know is that there were two different versions of the kit. So this is the first one. Both had this EC Fan-Addict Convention pin. These are popular items, and they're pretty easy to find on eBay and places like that because a lot of people saved those pins that didn't necessarily save the kits. Now, I think I have this right. There were two versions of the kit for sure. The contents of the first kit, let's take a look right now. We've got... Oh, actually, this is not part of any kit. This was a progress report that was mailed out to people attending the convention, and it gave you updates on who was going to be attending and what the panels were going to be and things like that. I do stick that in with my first version of the kit, but here you've got a preliminary ballot for voting on best EC horror stories, best science fiction, that kind of thing. So that's a preliminary ballot where you could write in any of your votes there. And there we go. First version of the kit also had a reservation card for the Hotel McAlpin, which is where the con was held. Let's see. First version of the kit also had a large double flyer. So this was in the first version of the kit. The second version of the kit, as you will see, had a program with it instead. So let's take a look at some of the different items that were in the second version of the membership kit. Here are the badges for the 3 days of the convention. Here is the final ballot for the Fan-Addict Convention Awards. So there are stories chosen. You could still vote for other, but these were, I guess, the most popular choices from the preliminary ballot. So it's a different version of the ballot was in the second kit. Here is the convention program that we were talking about. And there's not much to it. It's actually a lot of ads in the convention program. And then here's an unused envelope for mailing in your choices for the ballot. And that address right there, I don't know if that was for Ron or Bruce. I'm going to have to ask one of them. Okay, so the program, when people talk about the program, is often confused with this. This is not the program book. This was the convention book. This was a souvenir book that people got at the convention. EC Lives. It's got a lot of creator biographies, and all of these quotes were based on new interviews that were done for this book, and it's worth the price of the book if you can find a copy just to get this treasure trove of oral history from the EC creators. And there's a lot of story reprints here as well, which in 1972 it was not as easy to find EC reprint material. And I would like to point out that this is the only copy of the convention book signed by organizer Bruce Hershenson. And I hope that stays true, Bruce. I hope you haven't signed any others for anybody. And so I had mentioned that Bruce and Ron did go on to publish some EC Comics reprints. They got 12 issues done. These are the East Coast reprints that they did. And this is a full set here of those East Coast Comics reprints. Still, in my opinion, the best EC reprints ever done because they are the closest to the look and feel of the real original comic books. Now over here, we've got one of the Fan-Addict Convention staff t-shirts, plain EC logo on the front, and on the back, we've got the Vault Keeper reading Seduction of the Innocent. This image comes from Hana Fear number 27, the story Game Washed Out, I think it was called. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong on that, but that's a George Evans story. Now that's a Johnny Craig Vault Keeper because stats were used for the Vault Keeper introduction and final panel, but George Evans is the rascal who did that Seduction of the Innocent in there. Very famous image. It was also used for the back of the convention book. So that's the con t-shirt. There were only 24 of these made, and this is one of 2 known unworn examples. It's often confused with this, which was an official EC logo t-shirt put out by Cheese Louise. And these were advertised in the East Coast Comics. They are not EC convention t-shirts. So there's pictures of Bill Gaines wearing one of these, and it's actually not the same as the staff t-shirt. So as you can see, staff t-shirt has just that plain EC logo. The Cheese Louise is a little more elaborate, but there is the Graveyard Goodies ad page from one of the East Coast Comics reprints. These are the t-shirts that were advertised that you could order, and again, this is an example of that. This is not the EC Fan-Addict Convention t-shirt. I do see them mixed up a lot because Bill Gaines wore one of these often, and this is in fact a t-shirt from Bill Gaines's personal collection. He had a bunch of them in different sizes, and this was one of Bill Gaines's EC Cheese Louise t-shirts. Here's an example in white, and this one is not an unworn example. This is a pretty well-worn example. This belonged to Gary of Moondogs Comics. And as a side note, Moondogs is the only place I'm aware of that ever got an Alfred E. Newman licensed from EC Publications for their comic shop bags. This has nothing to do with the Fan-Addict Convention, but it's an interesting side note to this t-shirt, which did belong to Gary from Moondogs Comics. So we've got a t-shirt of Bill Gaines. We've got an unworn Fan-Addict Convention staff t-shirt. I think I've covered everything on the table in front of me, but I just wanted to focus on that 1972 EC Fan-Addict Convention and some of the items related to it. So if you have any questions, just ask me in the comments and keep coming back. I've got lots more EC junk where this came from. See you next time.